Hey, all right. Let's just jump right into the more advanced stuff with Procreate. Don't watch this unless you've already watched part one, the basics. Let's get to some settings, which I think you'll enjoy. So, when you click on the actual brush that you're using, a whole bunch of other options open up. First of all, an Apple Pencil. This will determine what happens when you press hard with your Apple Pencil. So right now I have it set to max, which is what I like. I'm sorry, I have size set to max, which means when I add pressure, the size will change. So press down lightly, it's thin. Press down hard, it's thick. Now, that's not the default setting. What you probably have on yours right now, if you haven't changed this, is something like flow or opacity up, which means pressing down light makes it like kind of transparent. Pressing down hard makes it more opaque. I strongly recommend, at least when you're starting off, to change it so your Apple Pencil pressure changes the size. The second thing you want to think about is this. When I am sketching, I like to have complete control of my pencil. However, when I'm inking, I want things maybe to be a little smoother. So if I go up to stroke path, instead of Apple Pencil, go to stroke path, I can turn on streamline. If I have streamline off, which is normally what I have when I'm sketching, no matter what I do, the line that's created does exactly, or goes exactly where my pencil goes. That which means sometimes I'm left with like jaggedness. However, with streamline on, it smooths everything out. So I have less control, but the line's smoother. So this is great for inking purposes. All right, the other setting you might want to look at is this. When I go to preferences and the um, gesture controls, the eyedropper, I have mine set up to only come on when I do this little touch thing. You probably have this on right now, which means if I hold my finger down for a while, this little guy comes up and it'll change whatever color you have to the color you have underneath. This thing is great. However, a lot of times I'll see people draw and they'll kind of put their finger down to think for a little bit before they start drawing, and then oops, they've accidentally changed the color. So I strongly recommend that you go to your preferences and then under gesture controls, eyedropper, turn that off. Just leave this option on. And when you do that, only by pressing the little square right there, then when you touch, it'll turn on the style. So I missed a little bit because I'm looking at the screen. There you go. So I can get that to pull up by touching the square, and then that's how it comes up instead of coming up just when you hold your finger down. Okay, those are important settings to consider after you get past the basics of Procreate. Uh, Now, I want to show you a couple more things that I think you'll enjoy. My Apple Pencil is now dead, so I'm going to do this old school while it charges. I'm going to create a new layer, and instead of inking with a black line, which is what we did in basics, I'm going to ink with the actual color that I want the object to be. As a result, my drawing is going to look more like a painting. So I've got streamline on so that this thing is nice and smooth. And even though it's kind of hard to draw on a glass surface, the fact that you can zoom in kind of makes up for it. Wouldn't you agree? All right, cool. And then I'm gonna make like a different color on the inside, maybe like a reddish color. And I don't know what this is, but we'll see. Cool. And this is like my weird hollowed shape. Now, if I want to see my sketch lines more, I can turn the opacity of this layer down, which is the next advanced tip. To turn the opacity of a layer down, you can tap N and then slide the opacity down. So this way I can see my sketch lines now for when I draw this next part, which is like the weird little circle thing there. I guess this is like an eye. Whoops. And fill that part in. Cool. Now I can turn the opacity back up by hitting N. And this is what I've got so far. Now, the next exciting pro tip, clipping masks. This is like my favorite thing about Procreate. You might be familiar with this in Photoshop. Maybe not. Probably not because you guys are like 12 and 13, 14. Just most of you haven't used Photoshop a lot. But if you have, Cool. You're familiar with clipping masks, maybe. So I'm going to now do my shading. And and right now it's hard for me to kind of stay inside the edge as a shade. But with clipping mask, what it does is tap it, turn on clipping mask. It clips anything that isn't above something at layer 2. In other words, layer 3 now looks at layer 2 and sees what's there, what's not, and then it only keeps lines that are inside layer 2. So I can kind of do this. And in reality, if I take the clipping mask off, ooh, that's what I did. But with clipping mask on, it gets rid of all that stuff. And now I'm going to blend. Oh yeah, the next pro tip, or whatever, advanced tip, blenders. Blending is awesome. A lot of people get frustrated with it because they don't realize that their blending is too big and just like everything changes at once. Like, just it doesn't work for them. So you got to adjust the size of your blending and the opacity of your blending to get what works for you. Think of this as the size of your blending stump, and this is how hard you press with your blending stump. So if I get the size just right and then the pressure right, you can really blend it to make it look like pretty cool. And just like when we do watercolors, you don't blend everything. You just generally you go along the edge to blend. And then, cool. Now, let's say I want to blend that pink area now. I got a bit of a problem because if I try to, I'm sorry, if I'm going to shade that, it's hard to not go on the blue area. I can't use a clipping mask because, well, I already am. They're on the same layer. So here's where I come in with my selection tool. I go back to the layer that has the color, and I type that little S up there. Now there's different options here. If I hit freehand, I can draw a little area, but whatever areas aren't inside those diagonals, those are the areas I'm actually doing things to. It kind of restricts you to that area. I don't want to do that though. I want to get just the red. Now I could try to kind of go over that, but the easier way is to use automatic. Sorry, let me try that again. Automatic. And then, whoop, I touch it in all the areas that are the same color selected. Now, if I go to automatic and I touch, and then I kind of move my finger to the right or to the left, it'll be more or less selective. So let me try that again. So here it's like selecting hardly anything, and it actually didn't select some of the reds where they're like Paris. It was like a little fuzzier. And if I do it too much, it thinks everything's red. So I'm going to slide it so just the red parts are now selected. And notice that the red turned blue, and that shows me it's selected. Now, once I've selected that red area, I can go back up here. And now when I shade, only the red area is selected. And I'll do my blending. Cool. And neato. I can do the same sort of thing with this guy. Always make sure your shading is on a separate layer. Now, you might ask, well, why do we need to use clipping masks if we can... Oh, I've got smudge on. Why do we use clipping masks if we can just use selection tools? Clipping mask is usually just easier, in case that's what you're wondering. There we go. Finally, a little bit of move options with layers. If you want to move these, unfortunately, ooh, that happens. So if you try to move both layers at once, you simply select either of the layers, then just move the other one to the right a little bit, and it turns that color. Then when you move them, they all move together. Cool? All right, make sure that's all I needed to show you.